Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight I'm proud to introduce you to Living Hellenismos with Tony Mierzwicki, and his guest is the one, the only Jean-Louis de Biasi. Greetings, Tony. How are you?
Doing really well, Hercules. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's show.
So am I. So as you pointed out, we're very pleased to have Jean-Louis de Biasi to talk about the book which he co-wrote with his wife, Patricia Bourrin, titled Mysteries of the Aura, How to See, Interpret, and Work with Subtle Energies. So here's a copy of the book. It's an absolutely fantastic book. I reviewed the book for my Pathos blog, Holistic Spirituality, in April 2023, and wanted to learn a little bit more about it. But first, let's have a look at the author's background. Jean-Louis de Biasi is an author, lecturer, and philosopher. He is also a certified yoga teacher, practicing several branches of yoga for more than 40 years. He has been initiated into the highest degrees of several Western traditions, is the Grand Master of the Aurum Solis, Mediterranean Yoga, and GP of the Kabbalistic Order of the Rose Cross. Prior to his involvement in American Freemasonry, he received the highest degrees in Freemasonry in Europe, including the degrees of Egyptian Freemasonry. He specializes in esoteric Freemasonry and rituals. With his wife, Patricia, he is managing the international organizations mentioned before and teaching the 8 rays of Mediterranean yoga all over the world. Jean-Louis, thank you so much for making yourself available and coming on the show. How are you today?
Good, thank you so much. My pleasure to be with you, talking about this book.
Yeah, we're Hercules and I are both absolutely thrilled to have you on the show. I really enjoyed your book, Mysteries of the Aura, and you wrote about the importance of diet, that a vegetarian diet works well, but that you and your wife, Patricia, are on the Mediterranean diet, which allows for a small quantity of meat. You explain that some animals have a high level of consciousness close to that of humans. When animals are slaughtered violently, physical and energetic reactions occur. You recommend always choosing organic food humanely raised and killed. Can you suggest a short ritual or prayer that can be used to detoxify meat? Also, how about choosing animals with low levels of consciousness, such as shellfish, for instance?
This is a good idea, yes. Fish is excellent. When I wrote this part with Patricia, I was completing a degree in Mediterranean diet from the University of Athens in Greece. So I completed that. I obtained the certification of Mediterranean diet, but several years ago, when I was young, between 18 and 30 years old, I was fully vegetarian, really during a long time. At start, it has always been for a philosophical reason, mainly. But it was really good. Then I have been initiated in the Aurum Solis, and I changed my view. And I try to find a more balanced, open diet that is really validated by the medical associations. And American Heart Association is validating Mediterranean diet. So now we use vegetarian diet just for few times in the year. When you need to have a specific asceticism, you use that, or when you prepare a specific spiritual process, you use full vegetarian diet. But as you said, the question is, can I choose animals with a less developed consciousness or not? This is really complicated. This is a complicated matter because you say mussels, shells, and so on. What about octopus that are very intelligent? Exactly, what about another animal This is really complicated. And mostly I am not a hunter, not yet, at least. And I am not sacrificing yet animals also. So I rely on people who are killing for me. So I cannot do anything beside the humanly raised. So what can I do after? Ritual is complicated because when you are invited somewhere and so on, how you can do a specific ritual, you cannot. But what you can do very easily is mentally to connect to the spirit or to the energy, the power that is still in this piece of meat or fish and so on. And if you are well trained in 1 second, few seconds, immediately you connect with this kind of intelligence still remaining like a ghost around the meat. And you do with visualization and intention a release of the spirit. And this release is possible through blessings. And this is really an intention, a focus, very strong. But people usually don't know something very important. They think in terms of magic. They say, okay, I will push away the spirit, liberate the spirit, or bless the spirit. So in this case, I am doing a strong action. I am the magician. It works, but not always. If you want to succeed every time, you have to use love, connection. You have to, instead pushing, you have to open your soul, open your mind, welcome this gift, and doing that, embracing what you will do with pleasure, and in the same time in your mind, this opening liberate the power, liberate the energy if there is any. And when you place your relation with the meat, the fish, the animal on this level of love, harmony, everything is simple. So this is, it can, with a good training or a good state of mind, it can take a few seconds, and this is enough. And you have no issue after to assimilate the meat, to welcome the power of the animal, the gift, in fact, you have. But as anything, everything, and I can't finish with that, excess could create the opposite. So that means this is okay if you enjoy that, but if you are in excess, you cannot do the same because your body is saturated. So you have to find a way to find a good balance. And this is what we should try every time.
I really like that because you can do it very discreetly. You can be with a group of people, and even if they notice that you're doing something for a few seconds, they'll think you're just saying grace. They won't notice anything.
Exactly.
So, moving along, you wrote that a greenish ribbon of light appearing in front of the body is a sign of a lie, and that you would use this to catch your daughters out while they were lying, while they were still young. I find that really funny. You would also look for bright lead lightning bolts when someone was violently irritated. Also, when these luminous currents became foggy or slowed down, it indicated the subject was intoxicated with alcohol or drugs.
Sure.
Would you recommend these techniques of aura scrutiny as a parenting tool?
I don't know if I can recommend it. I did it. I don't know if I am proud of it. I don't know. At first, it was just, I noticed that. And I noticed the connection. So I said, this is weird. So let's try again. Trying again, it worked. So they noticed what I was doing because they were aware of that. So at this point, it was not against their will. They knew that if they were lying, I will see it. So it was a double relationship, and everything was okay, because there is always this idea to not be too intrusive to someone. Usually when you have to, when you want to see the aura or do an aura reading and so on, my ethic, my moral code is not to do it without the consent of someone, including my daughters, for example. So when I was very young, yeah, I confess, I was not asking. Can we use it? I think so, but you can extend that. Can you do it for politicians? Maybe it's a good idea.
I think it's an excellent idea for politicians.
So this is, we didn't write an exercise for that, but you can extend an exercise and see if a speaker is telling the truth.
Yeah.
Could be a good exercise.
In the book, you describe the power of affirmations. You wrote, by repeating a word or sentence, we influence the deepest levels of our unconscious, eventually changing our daily life. We have the example of the famous phrase, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. This positive affirmation affects the mental body, generating new agglomerates that can influence all the levels of our being. Would you be able to explain exactly how the images of color spheres cause this to happen?
Yeah, for that, you have to keep in mind that the power that surrounds you, the aura, usually you do not have any specific shapes. This is a moving energy, always evolving, always changing shape, color, and so on. Until you are obsessed by some ideas, against your will, or you choose to. If this is against your will and you are obsessed by anything, this is like cooking a dough. You will have agglomerates. And these agglomerates, if they are not controlled, can haunt you. They can twist your mind, change your vision of the world, your understanding of the world, and so on. This is when you do not control it. And if you do not start to work on the vision of your perception and control, you are controlled by it, by unconscious minds. So the point is to keep in mind that this energy must be controlled by your mind, by your will, and you will create, willingly or really, you will create several symbols or shapes that will help you. And if you do theurgy, if you do magic and so on, you can think about angels, archangels, divine powers, and so on. And some people are using this focus in the same way. Nobody is saying that these creatures are real or not, but at least you can create the appearance of a reality in your aura. You will feel a presence. But this presence, most of the time, has been created in your own mental aura or astral aura and so on. There is no connection, or almost none, with a real one. So this is exactly the same. So this is very important for someone to be always in control and willingly to decide to create something that can help you and that can affect you. I give you another example. If you use the energy to heal someone, you can place your hand above the part that has been hurt, for example. So just the power given by the palm of your hand, if you know how to use the breathing, the visualization, and so on, you can heal someone. But if you control the vision, you know which color to use. For example, if someone has been hurt, like a wound or something, you use a green color. So you will visualize that the energy used and given will be a beautiful green, like a tree in spring or something like that. So you will increase, in fact, the power with this way. So this is not just the fact to see something, but the fact to see and to be aware of it will increase your power every time you will use the energy. So the vision, this is exactly as if you say, okay, and we played with that with my wife this morning, you go outdoor and you walk outdoor, okay? Nothing extraordinary, but you do that eyes closed. This is complicated. Now try to run eyes closed. This is even more challenging. Now you open your eyes. This is very helpful. This is exactly the same for the perception of the aura. You can play with energies and so on, and that's okay. But if you can see, it had a level of control that is amazing. Because for the first time, you can know exactly what you are doing.
I was curious about your choice of the color green for healing. You seem to tie it in with trees, but green also ties in with Netza in the Queen scale. It also ties in with the heart chakra in the usual rainbow color scheme that we use in the West. So I was wondering why you chose green.
Because I am in my inner world or inner perception, Kabbalah is not there.
Okay.
So in a way, when I do that, I don't care about Kabbalah, and Kabbalah didn't exist or doesn't exist. So why the color green? The honest answer would be, I have no clue. I don't know. What I saw is when I am doing this work of healing in the aura, my aura, or someone I am training who is doing that, green occurs. Why? I don't know. Symbolism? Maybe. Linked to Kabbalah? Certainly not. But in fact, this is a point to be in an experimental way for a long time. Saying, okay, Kabbalah says, no, as you said, another system says something different. But what if we are working without these systems?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? And sometimes this is really different. Sometimes this is not the same. But you are totally correct. And I speak about that in the book. If someone is working with the Kabbalistic system, working theologically, magically, creating in his mind the Kabbalistic tree, the four worlds, everything, in this case, the colors could be different. Because for him, in his or her world, the references are different. So this is changing, affecting something in a different way. Is it better or worse? It depends. It depends really. But this is not a rule, yes.
To quote Aleister Crowley, let success be your proof. So the only thing that matters is if you work with the color green, you're getting results. But I found your answer refreshingly honest, that you're not quite sure why it works, but it definitely does work. So it just goes to show that this is a work in progress. It's an ongoing project, and your book is like an absolute milestone, but other people come along and make little contributions to it, solve tiny mysteries such as why green works so well for healing.
Yeah, what I discovered is that with the aura, you have something that is common to everyone in the world. And then people are using archetypes, systems, linked to their cultures. And this common ground is affected and changed. So if you forget the systems, if you forget a very strong structure, such as Kabbalah, such as chakras, and so on, you will find a common ground for everyone in the world. And in this case, this is different. And what I saw is freedom is without system. If you use the power of the energy without referencing this power with a specific egregor, such as Kabbalah, you will have a greater power, efficiency, and large freedom. This is not the case if you are in a very narrow system or very dogmatic system. In this case, you are not free, and your energy work is not free. And the energy is flowing in a different way, less powerful, let's say. So this is very interesting, at least not to leave the different system, but at least be able to disconnect from them when we are doing an energy work, such as healing, for example. So you can do healing as a Kabbalist, or you can do healing as someone doing an energy work. And the second one will be more powerful. So there is a real training to learn how, for a while or totally, to disconnect from the system that is limiting my power, in fact. And it's interesting to see that in this way. Sometimes we need to not have this prison, in a way.
One thing I noticed in your book was that you talk about working with the chakras a fair bit, and in the correspondences for those chakras, you're working with a 7 chakra system, which is currently very popular in the West, and that you tie them in with the 7 Greek vowels and the 7 colors of the rainbow. And I was wondering if you found whether blending East and Western traditions works better than a pure Eastern approach.
Yeah, this is a really difficult question. And when you do yoga or pranayama, this is exactly the same issue. You know, and we say that in the book, this is not limited to 7 chakras. The heart, for example, is a different chakra than the center of the chest. You have a lot of other tiny chakras, we can say, or nadis and so on. So can we choose Western system or Eastern system or a mix of both? I like to try both. And what I saw, again, with, in fact, we should think about this question in 2 ways. First, are you doing an aura reading? If you do an aura reading on someone, this question doesn't exist, because you are doing the aura reading on someone, so you are watching who is he or is she, and you describe what you see. And if someone is doing really focused on the Eastern path, the notion of chakra and the presence of chakra will be very strong, and you will see the chakra, you will see the nadi, the circulation of energy, and so on. Now I do an aura reading on someone who is just doing Western path, Western tradition, and so on. And the notion and the structure in the aura will be different. And I will see more focused on the 7 planets, linked or not to the Kabbalistic tree, and so on. So this is me doing the aura reading. Now I have to work with energies and using my vision to help someone to clean a place, to focus on healing, and so on. So in this case, I am not a spectator, I am an actor in this case. And then I will use what is the most appropriate for me. So if my center is the Western tradition, I will use it, because it will increase my power faster. I will be more effective. And the end of the answer, so you see there is these 2 aspects, but there is another aspect. Another aspect occurs when you want to help someone who is in different system than you. let's say I want to have an action of the aura of someone who is a Christian. Can I use my pagan pantheon? I can, but it will be less effective. It will be better for me to connect with his or her world and do the process like that. So to end my answer, there is no answer. There are just situations and different situations. So everything exists, but not everything is powerful in the same way for everyone. This is a moving world. So we have to find the best way for the situation.
Okay. There was a fascinating anecdote in the book where you wrote that in the 1980s, you traveled to the Cairo Museum in Egypt, where you examined the mummies of the kings of Egypt with your astral vision, and you perceived colors, waves of light, even pulsations of energy. It was not a manifestation of a living being per se, but a type of living energy maintaining a certain level of consciousness. And then you wrote that later you saw mummies in Italy and France, but that you never experienced the same manifestation. So I was wondering if the mummies you saw in Italy and France, were they sourced from Egypt as well? And if so, how is it that these same lights and energies weren't visible? Is it possibly because they were no longer in their homeland, or were those mummies from different cultures, such as from the Inca people or the Chinese?
Now, what I saw in France were, and in the south of Italy, were mummies of monks that were mummified naturally.
Oh,
So
okay.
they were mummified in a cave, not exactly a cave, but a kind of cellar, underground cave. And they were placed after their death here with every apparel as a monk. And progressively, they became mummies. And what you see, this is, of course, this is really weird and strange to see that, because in some rooms, they are all around the room and you are in the center and you are surrounded by mummies of monks looking at you like that. So it can be strange. And in the same time, they are empty. They are just corpses. And you do not feel much from that. And when you are in presence of mummies, but also in the Cairo Museum, it happens also for some statues that were really, really alive, I can say. And in this case, this is really coming from the rituals. And the rituals they used in ancient Egypt really created a kind of concentration in the mummy. And part of their personality sometimes, part of their power, it was jailed in the mummy. So you can feel the presence of a kind of personality, but more than a ghost, in fact. So you could connect with it. You could even maybe a kind of interaction, but this is a ghost. The real self of the figure has vanished for a long time. If you believe in reincarnation, they are somewhere else now, but something remains. And this is a real process that happens to everyone, to you and to me when we will die. A part of our aura, astral body, will stay for a while in the physical body, unless you are burned, of course, but will remain around. And if nobody do anything, it will dissolve eventually in some month, weeks or months. But if you do a specific ritual, as they were doing in ancient Egypt, in this case, instead of vanishing, this is concentrated in the mummy. and remain there. It could be good, it could be bad, it depends. I think this is never very good, really. But yes, this is a process.
So I assume the ritual you're talking about is the opening of the mouth ceremony?
Not opening of the mouth. Just before, part of the ceremony is to invoke the presence of the deceased within the mummy. Then with the opening of the mouth, you liberate a part of it. And not everything, but a part of it. And if you believe in reincarnation, this part of it lives and continue the path. But the remaining part, in this case, this is like a ghost. And the Spiritism movement talked a lot about it. They were very clear what you can do with this kind of presence.
Well, I was amazed by moving on. I was amazed by your account of the birth process, where organs are woven on the etheric plane before they become visible physically. Channels of energies called nadis are woven to ensure good circulation of energy. Then the chakras appear and intensify the circulation of energy even more, resulting in a form of consciousness involving the etheric, astral, and pranic energies. And you said that around the 4th month after the main chakras are established, a very intense and vivid channel of light springs from the fetus to the astral plane, which enables memory and the experiences of past lives, along with the energy of the soul, to descend through the crown chakra. Then the soul descends into the body. I assume that's through the crown chakra as well, and weaves the different subtle bodies according to its karmic memory and the conditions of the physical organism. And it works to combine and balance the genetic heritage of its own karmic inheritance. So my question is whether there's some sort of numerical or length of time significance with the most important processes occurring at the 4-month mark. And later on in the book, you wrote that by the 6th month, mark, the organization of the whole body was well advanced. So also, when do you consider that life actually begins? Is it at the 4-month mark or the 6-month mark or another time altogether?
Yeah, I can share with you that when we wrote this part with my wife, we had a debate to know if we added this part or not. Why? Because we were a little worried that everyone will think, and your question is really important for that, will believe that for every birth, this is exactly the same, which is not the case. This is a summary of what happens most of the time. But what I mean by most of the time, not always. Sometimes this is following the pattern, but you know that some babies were born before the term, other later, and so on. This is not the same rule for everyone. So when something occurs, what we did with this part is to try to find an average. Mainly, this is exactly what we wrote. But when I did the observation for my daughters, when they were, my ex-wife was pregnant and so on, and to see what happens, the progress, it was very close to that. But what you have to keep in mind that this is when the consciousness appears. So at one point, when the fetus or the baby will be aware of who he or she is, sometimes this is before birth, sometimes this is after. There is mostly this is before, which is, I at least, as I said in the book, few months before being born. Is it an absolute rule? No. Is there ways to see it or to know it? Yes. For the mother, for example, she can try to communicate with the spirit present. And she can use a kind of code saying, are you aware? Are you there? Something like that. And a communication can be created, really. Really. So there is no connection really with the aura, but in a way, yes, there is this mental connection. So my advice is to say, okay, I read this part, mainly this is what is occurring, but just to be sure, keeping in mind that the most important is when the consciousness is present. And the only way to know it is to communicate with it or do an aura reading. Because if you do an aura reading of someone who is pregnant, you can see what is happening. Is the consciousness here or not, yet or not? But what you can see, and I saw that a few times, when the pregnancy is interrupted for any reason, abortion or accident, consciousness is not there. Most of the time, this is not the case. As if the soul already knows that something will happen and there is no need to place everything. So there is a kind of animation more at the etheric level. The power, the energy is working, but presence of memories, presence and so on are not, you cannot see anything. And sometimes this is a very good way when you observe someone who is pregnant, and suppose you observe, you see these two etheric, you see the etheric of the body, and you don't see any memories, you don't see anything. Then you can deduct that something will happen. Something will happen, but it will be finished before term. That's for sure. So the observation is very, very important to know that. But something definitive occurs when the baby is born. The first inhalation, then this is really the time when the arrival is almost complete for everyone. Before that, depends. The more advanced, what is strange in the observations, the more advanced the soul is, the late part it will come in the body. That means someone with an advanced spiritual teacher, for example, will fully incarnate even sometimes few weeks or months after birth, which is strange, maybe, but this is the process, because there is no need to waste time at this moment, really. I am sure if you want to think about it and think, when I come back next time, maybe I will do the full incarnation after 5 or 6 years old. No time to waste. I will wait a little bit. No need to keep this kind of memories the first month. I will be back later. If you can decide, I recommend that. That's a good choice. Wait a little bit.
I actually really like the way your book was divided into theory and practice. So the first half of the book was the theory, so that people get a good understanding of auras and the whole process involved. And the second part of the book was structured initiation exercises. You pointed out that working alone is the easiest way to practice most of the exercises offered in this book. However, you can learn a lot by practicing with a partner, and it is important to choose someone you trust and feel comfortable with. So it seems to me that obviously having a partner will make the process of discerning auras much more fun. And I was also wondering which of the couples exercises have proven the most effective.
Several. First, more effective maybe will be to observe the aura of your partner and asking him or her to change his color. So I ask you, for example, choose a color, visualize the color in your aura, and then I sit in front of you and I open my third eye and everything I can to see this color, and I write back this color, and then we share and we reverse. So this is not perfect because the power of your visualization is important. Sometimes you cannot control very, very well. But at least you have two exercises. One is using visualization, which is good, and the other one is doing an aura reading. And this is fun. The other one I like very much, we use a lot in workshops, is to create a sphere of energy. And you decide with your own aura, own energy, and you decide to place a specific color inside the sphere. And then you move the sphere to the aura of your partner, and he or she will feel that, feel the presence of the sphere, and feel the color. And then you share. And you reverse the practice. So there are a lot of things like that, and these two exercises I like very much. Another one is not mentioned, I guess, in the book, which is fun also, is to look the aura of your partner sleeping. This is a good exercise too, for you to know where he or she is. Out of body experience, maybe not there, but if you observe the aura, you will know. You will see what is happening. You will see when they are going out, going in. And this is another exercise to do with someone you trust. Because keep in mind, this is intrusive. This is not always recommended to see someone naked without his or her permission. So this is exactly the same thing. You have to keep that in mind. You can see everything, every thought, the past and maybe part of the future. So this is intrusive. So we should not do it unless they ask. And if they insist. So you have to agree.
I like the way throughout the book you pointed out how important consent was. I mean, that's something that's important in all areas of life, but you really hammered the point home. I wanted to say that I really enjoyed exercise 3, Vision of Prana, which involves visions of different filaments, spheres, and all kinds of shapes. You wrote that they can have a very light color, but most of the time they are almost transparent. And you pointed out that these small particles are usually impurities on the surface of your eye. The blue background of the sky reveals the presence of these particles. So, because the exercise actually involved looking at the sky and seeing all these things in your eyes. And then you showed how to differentiate between impurities and prana. And the thing that blew me away about this is that I've been seeing particles in my eyes since I was a child, and I assume that most other people have as well. And I had been told that they were just optical illusions. So it was fantastic for me having them finally explained.
Yeah, and the best way, as you said in the book, is to use the blue sky. I live in Nevada, so we have a lot of blue sky all the time. So you can improve your vision of the prana. But this is good when you start to see that, and you started very early, as you said, to use it when you go in the mountain, close to a river, close to a waterfall, close to a fountain, close to the sea, and so on, and to observe the difference. What is different? And you can use, let's say you do the exercise with the blue sky in your backyard, and then you go close to a river, and you do exactly the same experience, but close to a river, and you will see a difference. You go to a waterfall, and you do the same. You look on the blue sky, but close to a waterfall, and you will see the difference. And this is interesting. And what is amazing, when you start to do that very often, when you look to a tree, a plant, a bush, you will see almost immediately the same thing surrounded. So this is not just a mist around the bush, but early morning, you will see these tiny bubbles surrounding the plant, surrounding the tree. Usually when you start, you see this mist around, this kind of incense, smoke, something like that. But after that, improving your ability, you will see these tiny bubbles. And sometimes very, very, there are a lot, sometimes less. And you can do a lot. That means looking in your garden, you will know even before something is happening that the plant has a problem, because the tiny bubbles are less, there are not so many around. So sometimes you use that everywhere. You can extend the exercise from one exercise, as you can see, you can apply it to a lot of situations. So this is limitless, really.
So from what you're saying that results vary depending on where you are, whether you're in a field or by a river. Does that imply that there are different forms of prana associated with different locations, or does the prana is there just one form of prana and it manifests differently in different locations?
Yeah, this is most of the time. There are exceptions, but most of the time, this is a concentration of it. When you are in a water, close to a waterfall in the mountain, for example, in a mountain, the concentration is higher. This is as if you are taking a drop of whiskey or a full glass of whiskey. You will feel a difference. This is exactly the same. This is the same whiskey. The quantity, the concentration is different. So you will do the same. You breathe in your backyard in a large city, or you do that in a national park, you will feel different. Sometimes you don't know why. Some people will say this is just because the level of oxygen is better, there is less pollution and so on, which is true. But regarding the level of inner energy, this is also true. When you are in a large city, very busy, pollution and so on, the ambient energy is very low, mixed with a lot of people around you, with a lot of auras. And if you are a national park with less people, you have nature, you have this concentration of natural energy. So this is the first step to enjoy nature, enjoy the level of oxygen, and enjoy the power, the energy of the place. You know that someone practicing shamanism, and I do that quite often, locations are also important. You cannot sit. This is not the same thing if you sit on a stone and another one, or on a rock. Okay, you have to understand how to choose the best location for you. But even if you do not consider these aspects, at least the level of energy, the concentration, the purity will be greater in national park. Is it the same? Yes, really the same. This is just the concentration. If there are differences, and this is possible, this is just linked to the location, really, because there are cracks in the rock. You have to understand how to figure out what is the best place for you. But mainly, this is what you can say: same energy, not the same concentration, not the same quality.
So from what you're saying, it seems that the greatest concentrations of prana are out wild spaces, green fields and waterfalls, mountainous areas and the like. What about for people who don't have ready access to the outdoors and live in urban areas in built up cities and the like? Will they still be able to visualize prana, or does the buildup of city buildings minimize what they can experience?
No, it's a great question. We are lucky most of the time. Even in large city, we have parks most of the time with trees and bushes, and we can use these places. This is very important. A good place is close to a fountain, even in a large city. This is a good way to do it. And if you have nothing, not a single place to go like that, you can practice pranayama. And practicing pranayama, which is the breathing technique, even if you have a lower concentration, you will be able to attract, to inhale more with specific techniques. So it will not be perfect, but it will be better than nothing. So going out in a park, finding a fountain, and even what I use sometimes is an artificial fountain in a room. You find a nice one with running water, with a little pump, small pump, not so noisy, and you have this running water. Just that increases the prana, really. And if you do, even with this artificial fall fountain in your room or without, you will see a difference. This is amazing. And with the breathing technique, it helps really. You can attract more, really, if you know how to do it. And the first step is what you did. See it first. And then you are aware of it. And when you become aware, this is easier, really.
Just going off on a little tangent, you talked about how you can be in a sealed up room and have a little fountain and still experience pranayama. One thing that I've noticed in myself, and other people have said very similar things, is that just the sound of running water is very relaxing. It's a great way to fall asleep. It's a wonderful way of going into meditative states. Is running water somehow connected with large amounts of pranayama, or is that a different mechanism altogether?
No, I guess you are totally correct. This is connected with it. There is a kind of instinctive reaction, like this is good for me. I should be close to it. Something like that, a very primitive reaction of something that is good for you. And the more you increase your perception, the more you feel that. And in the same time, you feel what is not good for you, what is bad for your prana, your breathing, and so on. But in any case, breathing techniques are important. Even if you are in the worst place, suppose you can give you, when I am hiking, for example, in a high elevation, so the quantity of oxygen decreases, so the effort this is really difficult to walk. But if you use these breathing techniques, you can continue, and it works. So that means even in a place where this is complicated, if you know how to do it, it helps you. So even as you said, in a large city with less possibilities like that, with a good technique, you can do the best, and you can survive in a bad condition. If you increase your ability, your inner ability, because doing that, you increase your awareness of the process. And if you are aware of a process, you control it. It helps you. If you understand what is happening within you, it will help you in your life. This is exactly the same thing. Being aware helps to control and to adapt to the situations. So this is something that we should be aware of it, because this is natural. It was natural. We lost it. Most of the people lost it. So we have to recover that. It's an interesting process.
It is an interesting process. Our ancestors lived in little villages, farming communities and the like, and they were very much in tune with nature, the passing of the seasons. And yet so many of us now live in urban areas, apartment complexes and the like, where we're totally separated from nature. So I think that a book like yours is very important to help strengthen the connection that people have with nature, the sort of connection that they would have had they had the advantages that their ancestors had. You know, seeing auras, practicing pranayama, breathing and the like.
Exactly. And keep in mind something when we are saying seeing the aura. Yes, this is an important part, an important step, but we are always speaking about feeling the aura. So we can detect it even before seeing it. And we have a part on that, how you can use a dowsing or radiesthesia to detect something, how you can use a human magnetism or human energy to detect the level of energy, the power. So this is interesting to see, and as I said that several times, but to feel also. And sometimes we feel it even without being aware of it. And we give an example at the beginning of the book, if you remember, like you see a group of people from above, and you see that they are at a specific distance each other, and you can draw a circle around each one. So that means we are aware of it. Not exactly aware, but we feel it. And this is true in every aspect of our life.
So just bringing everything together that we've discussed, it seems to me that regardless of the spiritual path that you're on, an ability to discern auras would be of great benefit. Are there any paths that you think would particularly benefit a lot from being able to discern auras? Any paths that you think would really, really benefit from your book?
A pagan path. And what I can call sacred nature path. So everything linked to nature, everything linked to paganism, everything linked to the earth will really fit in this system.
Yeah.
You need to limit really the artificial systems, such as the mental constructions, such as Kabbalah. I don't say they are bad or wrong. I say they are too disconnected from nature and from the earth. And the aura, the perception, the energy work, and so on is fully linked to nature and to the earth. Other systems are disconnected. They are working, could be useful, but they are being created in a specific, different way. They are too disconnected. So sometimes they are not helpful for our health. Nature is. Prana is. Breathing is. Diet is. We started with that. Everything like that is helpful. The other systems are mental. Many are mental. Can help, but they can also limit your ability.
Yeah, in addition to what you mentioned, I think any of the fairy traditions would greatly benefit from your book, shamanistic traditions, animistic traditions, all of them would greatly benefit from the exercises in your book.
Yes, there are some practices we talk about. No, we didn't talk, but about Druidism, for example, or Celtic tradition. You are already in contact with nature, with the 4 celebrations during the year and so on, but you are doing that as a blind people.
Yeah.
Now you should be able to do it in full awareness, looking and seeing what is really happening outside, seeing the energy when the sun is rising, not just knowing, but seeing, experiencing, direct. And in this case, you need to practice these techniques. In this case, you will increase dramatically what you are doing because you are in control and you are aware of what is happening. You can see for the first time, maybe.
I really like that. So rather than just going through the motions, you become an active participant, someone who's hyper aware, hypersensitive to everything that's happening around you within the ritual.
Yeah, the last thing I want to add, you should do that, but always under control.
Yeah.
Not being overwhelmed by what you are seeing. You open your eyes, you close your eyes. This is your decision.
Yeah, I actually pointed that out in the blog where I reviewed your book. I really liked the way that you pointed out that you had to be well-grounded, you had to be in control so that you decide when you want to see auras, you decide when you want to see discarnate entities, so that you don't want to be overwhelmed by seeing things all the time in everyday life. You have to be able to turn it on and off like a light switch.
Exactly. Yes, exactly that. Yes.
So we've almost run out of time. I wanted to ask you, what current projects are you engaging in?
What kind, you said?
Yeah, what current projects are you engaging in? So what?
Yeah, we are with my wife, again, we are translating for Llewellyn Publications the first book from the French language that has been written on out-of-body experience. So how to practice an out-of-body experience. Strangely, the first book on this topic was written by a French guy. And you will see who. I want to keep the surprise. And everything else after has been inspired by this one. So it's a big book with a lot of techniques, explanations, and so on. So we are translating it and adapting the language a little bit because this is old-fashioned, like 19th century. So this is a very good translation, but there are some things we adapt because this is not our language today. Okay, but we will be amazed because this is the same. This is something we should master. So beside that, we are working with some people like you on a book, an anthology about theology. And the book will happen, as we said, in the next, I guess, in the next year without problem. And other projects I will share on time. Yes, projects of books, but mainly it will be focused on these kind of inner abilities. And I can tell you why in 1 second. Our perspective, my wife and I, is to talk from experience, not copying other books and saying this one said that, this one said that. No, for the past many years of experience in the initiatory orders and outside, this is what we experienced, this is what we found. First level. So sometimes we use reference, sometimes not, because we are the one who are doing the experience and the work.
That's absolutely fantastic because so many books out there are just rehashes. So you pick up one book and you get another book on the same topic, and most of it seems very familiar. You've read the whole thing before. So having someone going back to first principles, resorting to experiential knowledge is truly a breath of fresh air. So I'm really looking forward to the book on astral projection that you have coming out, because I remember reading a book which I thought was the first book on astral projection, came out I think it was Fox and Muldoon, can't remember the name, they're English guys. So to find out that there was someone French before them is really, really interesting. I can't wait for your translation to come out.
Yeah, I hope that could be working faster. I'm doing my best.
Yes. So, how can people contact you, or in order to learn more about you, or do you have a website that you could share with listeners?
Yes, my own website is the best way to go. My name, debiasi.org. And what I can say is, after the release of the book and few interviews, some people contacted me saying, "Can you do aura readings?" Yes, I can, but are you willing to do it? I was not ready to do it, but I will. So in a few weeks, I will add a new page on this website, debiasi.org. And the number will be really limited because I have to write books. But some people who want to have an aura reading and so on, they will have the opportunity to ask in this case.
Very cool. So, Jean-Louis, thank you so much for coming on the show and letting us get to know you just a little bit better. I wish you success with all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
And thanks to both of you for an incredibly awesome show. I had to use all my control not to jump in and say several times.
We saw that.
So thanks to everyone for watching, for being here with us. This will be on YouTube in a few hours. So until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night, everybody.
Good night.